Everybody, welcome to another episode of After Impact. I am your host, Tom Bilyeu, and I am here with the incredible, the one who carries the weight of these shows, if I'm honest, Agent Smith.
Mr. Bilyeu, you're too kind.
Dude, I was really thinking about that today. I was like, man, I used to like... Chase. There are mics over here, Chase. We can hear you. Oh, that wasn't you? That's selling Cindy. Chase out. Yeah. Cindy, the voice of the community, making her presence felt in this After Impact. That was amazing. I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, wow, I used to like really get like hardcore taking notes and all that. Yeah. And then I found like your flow was awesome. So now I watch the episodes. I relax knowing that you're going to show up ready to play, armed with those questions, taking it into a cool place. And I'm super grateful for that. So,
all right, well,
to the community, this man is crushing it.
We are talking about Dr. Andy Walshe today, this man right here. And if you're joining us, this is After Impact. This is a show where Tom and I go deep into the episode of Impact Theory. Probably should look at that camera. We are pre-recording this because of vacation.
Yes. I wouldn't call it vacation.
It's not quite vacation.
We're going to Cannes, which I'm excited about from like hey, it's a beautiful part of the world I've never been to, but we're going there for Cannes Lion with the Vayner squad. Very excited about that. And then headed over to London, and that is closer to vacation, but also going to be doing London Reel, which I'm very excited about that, and doing a meetup, by the way, for all the Londoners in the house. So
cool.
Come, let's get together.
So unfortunately, this isn't live, but you can always join us every Wednesday at 10 a.m. for After Impact on Facebook, and it will be live, and you can ask questions. So let's dive into Dr. Andy Walshe today. So he is a elite athlete trainer. He is a leading expert on hacking human performance. So what this means is he's worked with, for many decades, some of the best athletes in the world in extreme sports, and help them reach a new level of performance. So he currently is the director of athlete performance at Red Bull and works with all of their athletes on their teams, and also does a lot of work with DARPA, so working for the government to figure out how can we push human potential farther, which is super interesting. He worked with Felix Baumgartner on the Stratus, Red Bull Stratus skydive free fall, which is really exciting, and he's just got a lot of interesting projects he's working on. So it was a really cool episode to get into his mind a little bit. And I want to start it off with the flight or fight response, because that was kind of a big thing that he works with the athletes on, trying to help them manage, but also help them become more comfortable in situations when that's triggered. And I wanted to ask you, because I know you talk a lot about getting in control of your emotions. So first, what is that like for you? How do you get in control of your emotions? And then second, is there any way to tap into those emotions, flight or fight, to get actually greater performance?
Wow, that's interesting. Like going reverse, like if you're too calm, like to try to amp things up a bit. Well, that's interesting. So, and perfect timing with this episode. So the Andy Walshe episode and the Jim Quick episode were my flu games. So those are the two where I can, and I wasn't sure, like re-watching these, like how would I come across? You can hear it in my voice a little bit, but
energy's
solid. I thought it hung together pretty well. And so that's an example of a time where I was literally forcing myself to project energy because I felt absolutely none of it. Now, I don't think of that as clicking over into fight or flight because that really, from a neurophysiological standpoint, is not an effective way to perform. So the real question becomes, okay, why do you kick into fight or flight if your life is in danger, when the stakes are absolutely at their highest? And really thinking about it, I don't know, especially for fight, I don't know that it's a very controlled mechanism. And so from like a did nature get it right standpoint, I'm going to posit that nature did not get it right. And that when you look at the highest performing athletes, all of them get to like an amazing place because they're able to overcome the natural inclination and get into a calm and creative state. So I'll take MMA fighters as like the perfect example. So when you go into a cage, you could actually get broken. Like, and I'll even sort of discount death, like probably nobody's walking into the cage thinking I might die in this fight, which actually is a possibility.
Sure.
But you know every time going in that you might permanently get injured, and not like accidentally. Like the other person is actively trying to injure you.
Yeah.
And that to me is crazy. And so is it the person that comes in and is wholly in the grips of the fight or flight response? They're swinging wildly. The heart rate is through the roof. They're breathing heavy. There's no blood in the prefrontal cortex. Everything is, going to, I'll call baser, like animalistic stuff. Do they ever win? No, they don't. Unless they land like one lucky flailing punch. And when you hear guys that gas out, they'll say like, my arousal was so high, like you can't maintain that level. It's in and of itself, it's exhausting. Like
right.
The breath, we're now at the edge of my understanding of like physiologically what's happening with oxygenating the muscles and all that. Like why, when everything is so elevated, I guess there's just only so many cycles you can run, but it exhausts them. Mm-hmm. And so they gas out really fast. Whereas the guy that can stay calm, keep his heart rate down, breathing regulated, they're the ones that do well. And I remember seeing, I think it was Coach Jackson. I forget his first name. It's not Randy, which is, of course, my first instinct. Greg Jackson. Almost certain that's true for George St. Pierre. Okay. And it was a championship fight, and George comes in between rounds and is sitting down, and he seemed really calm to me. And Greg Jackson was like, "You need to calm down." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "In through your nose, out through your mouth." And like, you just see George going to like an even deeper level of calm. And I was like, wow, like when George, like my sort of average day, I'm not as calm as George was. Like when he was telling him, "You need to calm down, George."
In the middle of a fight,
yeah, I was like, whoa. So there's like this whole other level where you're in control. And I think the most important part is engaging the higher regions of your brain. Now, I say that with the full awareness that you don't actually want to be thinking about what you're doing. You want to be in flow, no question. And there's that great Bruce Lee quote, "Kick until you don't think kick, you just kick," right? Flow, get into flow. Right. But be so practiced that you can slide into it. So I find that really interesting. So I would never say that I would want myself to go into fight or flight mode. The only time that like I find anxiety serves me is leading up to something where it's low level, but it makes me take it seriously. So that I really do like the research and I really put in the time and effort because I don't want something to go wrong. And when you think like, oh, I've got it, then that's also when people fall off. So there is like this middle range where you want to be aroused enough that you're taking it seriously, that you're putting in the work to make sure that you're hyper focused and all of that, to get into flow. And that is, and I'm very much processing out loud here, that is an interesting part of flow, that they say the stakes have to be high. And that if the stakes aren't high enough, if there isn't enough arousal for you to switch into flow, then you're really going to be in trouble. But and so from that standpoint, I would want to get myself there. I do always want to take things seriously. Like, my competition is when I show up and do an interview. But I really, like, you then break immediately and your performance begins rapidly degrading when you get into a true state of anxiety. Yeah. And I'll push just a little bit farther because I find this really interesting. I can tell you want to move on. But when I'm playing video games. So this is where I realize like this is actually really beneficial. And when I think about how do you practice when you don't have access to Red Bull and all of, Andy Walshe and his team, how do you practice getting into a situation where you trigger into fight or flight and practicing to get it down? And first-person shooters playing against real 14-year-olds that want to make fun of you, that like literally I can feel like as the match is like really close, you can feel the anxiety and like you're coming in this moment where maybe it's like you versus two people. Yeah. And in those moments, you have to literally, I force myself to shift down and not up. So it's like, and you let it go. Like as that collision is coming, Like I force myself to actually like lower my state of arousal so that I can stay aware, so that I can figure out where everybody's going. Because if you ramp up and you're like, okay, here it comes. Like if you're doing that, then it's actually worse and you perform worse.
And it's so counterintuitive too. And it's really odd. Like I know big wave surfers train for being held underwater, right? For getting like a 2-wave hold down, which could last a minute or more. And
that would be scary.
Your first inclination, like having spent a lot of time in the water, your first inclination is just to like panic and reach for the surface, right? But you can't do that. And the moment you start panicking, you just lose your breath. And so you just have to stay calm, even though you're getting tossed in the water and it's dark and you're disoriented and you don't know which end is up. You just have to stay calm and just let it happen. And it's really counterintuitive, and you have to train yourself to do that. It's odd.
That's really important, by the way. Like, I'm not a surfer at all, but like I can put myself in that position. Learning to relax is so key.
Yeah.
Learning to relax is a key part of flow, right? So it's making sure that you're in a situation that's sufficiently intense, but then not escalating, like learning to lower that. Really, really important. I mean, surfing is actually dangerous, so I don't know that I'll encourage people to go out and, hey, practice getting pounded by waves and being held down and not being able to breathe.
I wouldn't encourage that either.
Like, if that's something that you're doing, I can see why surfers hit sort of that mellow vibe, like having to learn to deal with that.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Definitely. There's another part in this episode where you talk about taking obtuse angles to get people to think differently in situations. So it's, again, Dr. Andy Walshe, his goal is to trigger the flight or fight response, but he can't do it with a big wave surfer by taking them out at Jaws or something, or at Mavericks, because they're so accustomed to that. So he does different things. Like you mentioned in the episode, he's like put a bear, like
literally
let loose a bear,
a real
on
bear, yeah,
which is crazy.
It's a trained bear, but like, ooh, like imagine if you weren't expecting that, and you ran into the kitchen to grab something. There was a grizzly bear,
right?
Like. Yeah, that's instant escalation.
Is there a video of that, by the way?
Yeah, I don't. It's stills. They have still images, so you can see the people like coming around the corner, and the bear is like right there. It's crazy.
Incredible. Do you ever try to employ something like this in a business setting for yourself?
No, but I do try to take advantage of the situations that present themselves.
Okay.
So inevitably, you end up in a situation where either surprise, like it's escalating and like something's going crazy. And so this comes back to my obsession with this notion that everything is just an opportunity to practice. All of life is about practice, not performance. Yeah. So when I'm in a moment like that, where there's a lot of money on the line, or where you're taken by surprise with someone's emotions and they're like getting wound up, or somebody's pissed, or two people are clashing, or whatever, in that moment, I literally say to myself, this is practice, it's not performance. Okay, that lowers me a notch. Then it's like in through the nose, out through the mouth. That lowers me a notch again. Then I envision like the blood trying to leave my prefrontal cortex, and I'm like, I'm gonna need that. And so putting it back, and the one thing that you can really feel is your heart rate. And so actually trying to like just focus on lowering your heart rate. So that I do a lot. I think that's really important. And in like, once you get to a sufficiently high level of business, that happens pretty regularly. I won't say once a day, but I mean, it's close, where like things are coming out of the blue. A client is pissed off. Somebody, like I remember walking into, we went to, I won't say who, but we went to one of our most important retailers, and I literally have no idea that there's like any beef. And I walk into the room and they like start not laying into me, but like they were clearly agitated.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is just practice, like not performance. And because it so took me by surprise, it was like, okay, this is a fantastic opportunity to like not only get myself there, but now I have to execute. Now can I get everybody back on the same page? Can we get through this moment where everybody is now back to being open-minded, where we can have a productive dialogue?
Right.
And doing that, like really being prepared to show up on game day, that's very important. So you never know when they're going to present themselves, but they will present themselves. And if you remember to practice in those moments, you can make use of them.
Yeah, and one of the objectives of Andy Walshe with his team is they're trying to create what he calls anchor memories. So when the bear, comes around the corner and you remember the response you had in that moment, and you can apply it to different situations. So I want to ask you about anchor memories. Do you use those? Like, for instance, when you're going on stage to give a big talk, you probably run through the routine you just talked about in kind of lowering your anxiety. But are there any memories that you pull back?
Yeah, I don't do it all the time, but I definitely use that technique of, okay, you were in this situation and you crushed it this time. And you did that, you crushed it that time. Like that's really important. And that from the notion of what happens in anxiety is people obsessively imagine a future that hasn't happened but is negative. And they think about it so much they start getting worked up. Or they may have had something in the past that really did go wrong. And so they obsessively think about that and how bad it felt and how embarrassed they were and how they feel like it really ruined their reputation, like whatever. And they'll just over it and over it and over and over. And that hardwires that anxiety response. So obsessively thinking about things that have gone positively, that is really important, because then you're going to hardwire that this is actually a great space for me. This is a chance for me to shine. And that was one of the things that really got me back. So when I was young, I would get nervous but not anxious to speak in front of people.
Yeah.
And that was like sort of my happy place. And I'd gotten very good at it. I'd practiced through high school. We've talked about my lunch table comedy routines and like all that. And I'd just done it so much, and gotten so much positive feedback. It was a great place for me. Then I get into business. I'm always out of my element. I always feel clumsy and awkward. So I begin talking in front of people now is triggering anxiety, which was totally foreign for me.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, how do you get that going back in the opposite direction so that you can feel empowered again? And part of it was using all those anchor memories of all the times that it had gone well, obsessively thinking about those instead of the times that it went poorly. And then because this is where it gets really weird. So let's say that you're anxious going into something, like really anxious, but then you murder it and you do an amazing job. What you'll obsessively think about is how anxious you were.
You're right.
And so you forget, you have to force yourself to remember, whoa. That wasn't problem. That was awesome. You showed up, you shined. This was amazing. This is a chance for you to really do something and show people what you're about. And I also think that you get the sort of cultural collision of don't be arrogant. And this is why I'm so bullish on pride. People need to be proud of themselves, because otherwise what happens is, hey, I felt really anxious going into it. Oh, I did okay. I did I did. And you're downplaying your performance. And so then afterwards, because you won't allow yourself to really go, I fucking crushed it. I showed up, I played. I did a great job. I'm really proud of myself. I'm good at that. I've worked really hard to get good at that. And I had a chance to shine and I shined.
Right.
So instead of that, because you won't allow yourself that, then you default back to the peak sort of emotional experience that you're allowing yourself, which was I was anxious as all hell. And so you obsessively focus on that. So realizing that, dude, if I crush it, I'm just going to own it. I crushed it. And that does not come naturally for me.
Yeah.
By nature, I want to downplay everything that I've done. I want to be humble, be chill. But being proud of yourself does not mean that you're arrogant. And so I think people confuse those. I am humble. I truly am prepared to sit at the feet of others and learn. I don't overvalue the things that I'm good at, but I understand where they play. I understand how they help build my self-esteem. I'm proud of all the work that I've put in. So being able to own the things you do well, own the things that you don't do well, and really look at both in accord, and then just understand the whole notion of do and believe that which moves you forward. Obsessively thinking about anxiety is not going to help. So bad strategy.
I think that's such an important concept and distinction for people. I know I've struggled with it. I know most people have probably struggled with the fact that you tend to just focus on the negative things, the things that went wrong, right? Yeah, it was good, but there were these little mistakes. I could have done this better. I mean, people, especially people who are ambitious and who, want to achieve greatness, it's you're looking for those things that you can improve. And sometimes it's easy to forget the things that went well, which will trigger further anxiety in the future. So one book that I just want to give a quick shout out to is Performing Under Pressure. Is that J.P. Fry?
J.P. Fry, I believe.
Yes, Fry. That is a very detailed book. It gives tons of strategies about how to deal with situations like this when your anxiety is spiking and you need to perform in a situation. And one of the key things is you got to have that cookie jar, as Goggins would say. Right. You got to remember the times that you performed, the times that you pulled through, that you that you've suffered and persevered and when times were hard. And that's one of the key strategies before you go into situations like that.
A part of my brain is screaming that it's J.P. Palu Fry. So I'm going to go with that. Okay. Final answer.
Palu. All right.
J.P. Palu Fry.
Cool. Let's go to next question here. So I'm really fascinated in this episode that you kept asking Walshe about, what is it that you're looking to help people with, these athletes? And he was saying, we're not helping them with their craft. They're already masters of their craft. Really, we're trying to take them to the next level with themselves. It's about their psychology. It's about, them being more introspective and personal development. It was so fascinating. And so it's about getting them to understand who they are, which I think is a strong argument for anyone to work on that now, right? Like, you don't have to become a master of your craft to start working on that. So do you think there's one before the other, or do you think you can do?
If anything, I think character comes first. I think really developing, because the buying into human development is buying into the foundation of how you learn and how you excel. And so I think that, it'd be fascinating to look at like what these early coaches are teaching their students, but certainly about that sport or whatever it is that they're trying to get great at. They would have to instill in them, even accidentally, a belief that you can get better, right? Otherwise, why show up every day?
Sure.
So already you've got a growth mindset in that area. It may not carry over to other areas. They may start, telling them, no, it's just that you're talented at this, and now we're trying to maximize your talent. But if you didn't have talent, then you can never do it. But certainly in that arena, they're really going to believe that they can grow and improve through disciplined practice. So that, like, laying that foundation, I think is so critical. The thing that I loved about what Andy was talking about is the concept of character. Like, we actually select, he said, like, when we're trying to put together a team, we select for character first. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm surprised by that, because some of the greatest athletes in the world, like, seem to utterly lack character. And I will say, and I'm not going to say this person by name, and I'm not even sure why, but while I was researching Jay Williams, who's an upcoming episode, great, fascinating story, like this guy, really interesting.
Yeah.
And while I was researching him, I just kept encountering like other basketball players. And there was one guy people kept talking about, so I was like, I'm just gonna go look this kid up. And his skill set is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I was like, how is this guy not one of the most famous basketball players of all time? Because he's a dick. And I was like, character means something.
Right.
Like, just wanting to be on his team. I was like, I bet people don't want to play with this guy.
Yeah.
Like, because he just seems like a jerk. And so that concept of character is pretty critical. And I would much rather meet somebody that I was like, this cat's got some character. Like, I want to be around them. I think they're a good human being. I'd rather that, like, and I would certainly rather somebody said that about me than that I was exceptional at something, but like nobody wanted to be around me. Like that. So I love, when he said that, I was like, I love that that's like an anchor point or a foundational element to like high level success.
Yeah.
That makes me very happy.
Yeah, it was super interesting. I mean, especially because I think a lot of the projects they're working on, they're really team efforts, and the stakes are so high that everything has to go right. Everyone on the team has to be performing, and they have to trust each other. And I think he mentioned, like, yeah, if people aren't showing up with the equipment that we need for the day and they don't own up to it, like, that's a clear indication that they don't have the character for this team, and they usually fall off. But you've hired a lot of people, so is that a selection criterion for you?
It's almost the only selection criterion. Yeah. So there's 3 things that I look for in any teammate: drive, ambition, and compassion. Like, I want people that really, really have grand ambition. Like you've got to want something, partly because otherwise I'm going to seem crazy to you, but also like I want people who are intrinsically driven. I don't want to have to be their energy. I don't want to have to be the one pushing them. I don't want to feel like I'm dragging people around. Right. Like my wife never has to remind me to get up and work my ass off, ever. And I never have to remind her, right? Like she shows up to play, I show up to play. Like that's such a nice thing in somebody else to know, like, I'm not going to have to breathe life into them. Then the other one is drive, because I find that a lot of people have ambition, like they want, but they literally have no, like they make no effort to acquire the real skills or hold themselves accountable. Okay. So to me, there's a lack of accountability and ambition. And a lot of people are pacified by the dream itself. And they put up vision boards and they see the big house and the fast cars and all the things that they want. And they never go, but how do I actually get there? Or now, because that's like more of an 80s reference, actually that's not true. There's a huge swath of humanity that follows certain influencers that we won't talk about, and all the influencers do is just show money, houses, cars, like over and over, rinse and repeat. And it's like, so the other one that's become more insidious because of its ability to pacify people, I want to do good. I want to help. I want to have impact, right? Because I like wake up in cold sweats that people like, they gravitate to the fact that we're called impact theory. And they're, oh yeah, I want to have impact. How? In what way? Like when people say I want to make somebody's life better, in what way? Like hyper specifically. I've already talked about it ad nauseum. I won't go into it here, but Jesus, like I have a specific vision for how I plan to impact people, how I plan to execute on that, how I plan to make it real. Like, and we are executing against the specifics of that every day. So because it is so beautiful to want to help other people, I think people get lost in that. So I am not an empty dreamer. I'm not interested in empty dreamers. I want people that want to execute. So that's where drive comes in. Drive is the ability to go, I'm going to like grit this out. Like I'm actually going to acquire the skills and actually going to do the work that I need to get this done. And then the last one is compassion. And compassion is where everybody falls down. When you find people that are ambitious and you find people that have drive, they're the next thing for them is normally competitiveness. Yeah. And I love competitiveness, man. Dude, I've learned to be competitive as an adult. I was not as a kid because I was always terrified I would lose. And so being competitive when you are wildly insecure, that's not interesting. So, but once you can train yourself to realize human potential is limitless, you can do anything you set your mind to. It's all about the grit and determination to see it through. Okay, well then I'm going to show up to play. Like that becomes the feedback loop. Am I doing the things that I need to do to be great? Am I acquiring the skills I actually need to acquire? Am I actually getting great? And so that, like, when people are willing to admit that to themselves, they want to be the greatest of all time at something, like that to me is a human that's awake in the matrix, because now they're prepared to show up to play. But there's something that's way more important than that to me, and that's compassion. And so to say it another way, can you, from a neurochemical standpoint, enjoy somebody else shining? Can you enjoy it? Yeah. Like when your teammate's the one that's shining, are you like, and you just don't like the spotlight not being on you, and so like you're gonna try to trip them up, fuck them up, like in subtle ways, big ways, whatever, because it's like, I want the spotlight back on me. That to me it's gross. I'll be real honest. It's just gross. And if you have it, train it out of yourself. I believe we're malleable. So like, even if you have gross, icky things in you, which I do in spades, but I am actively trying to train that shit out of myself. So yeah, like I am so excited for Lisa to do her podcast, and it's going to crush. And she, like, because her co-host is a massive social influencer, it's going to be huge immediately. Yeah. And Lisa came to me and was like, basically, I don't want to take anything away from what you do. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, I'm so excited for you. Like, the second that you feel like you have to tiptoe around me and that you can't fucking smash it, like, I would make an amazing first husband. right? Now, full disclosure, I would be trying to do my own thing and build my own, like, I want to win at the absolute fucking highest level. But I love when other people shine. Like, I love that. I'm the kid that pretended not to see Easter eggs when I was like 5 or 6 so that my sister could find them because she loved winning so much more than I did. Like, there's just some people, like, and this is admittedly an early win for me. Like, I did not earn that at 5 or 6. I'm just wired like that. I idolized my sister. I loved seeing her happy. And so I thought, okay, the joy that I will get for winning this Easter egg hunt and getting this egg pales in comparison to how it will feel for me to see how happy she will get if she wins. So people that can enjoy other people shining is just, I think, good mojo. But then also from building a team perspective, when you feel you can trust people, when other people have your back, and when it's like this reciprocal loop of and make no mistake. So if I'm first husband, there are still times I want to shine. I want to shine, man. And I'm going to put myself in a position to shine. I'm going to carve space for me to shine. Like, it's important. I think everybody needs those moments to really fucking shine. Technique, right? To have developed a skill, put that skill to use, helping other people, and to be recognized for it. Like, the recognition is important.
Yeah.
So that's like a whole thing. Make no mistake, like, I want that just as much as anybody. But when you're on a team and it's like, oh shit, it's Agent Smith's time to shine. Like, let's all get behind that. Like, in fact, I don't think the person is here, but one of our teammates is going to shine today. You know about this, right?
Do I? I don't think I do.
Who's here right now? Is Will here?
He's not.
Okay, so
But
Will graduated.
Yeah.
So we're going to do like a little thing just to show him the love, to be excited for him.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody crushes it, we all gather around that. Like behind the scenes, like, we are not stingy with giving credit to other people. And that's one thing I love about this team. So that's a really long answer. Those are the 3 things that I look for. That is critical. It's the only way that you're going to keep the team together. Because if people, like, frenemies are the most, like, psychologically damaging thing in the world. If you have a frenemy, get rid of them right now. Right now. Enemies are fine. Everybody knows where they stand. Frenemies are corrosive.
Can you give it a definition of a frenemy?
Somebody who is meaningful in your life. At times they're good to you, and at times they're bad to you. So you can't, like, just draw a line and distance themselves in your life. It's like, oh God, like, you feel like there's this sense of friendship or familial obligation, so you're staying in each other's lives.
Almost be a good friendship.
Yeah.
It's like,
but then you find out that they undermined you in some way or whatever. And then it's just like, you never know, like, who you're dealing with. An enemy, you just know, okay, this person's an enemy. Like, there's actually, like, even describing that, I felt myself relax. Like, oh, they're my enemy. Okay, cool. Like, I know where we stand. It's all good. Like, I have you in a part of my mind. But when you're a friend of me, it's like, I don't know what I'm going to get. And I really, one thing I want to learn about, Chase, can you write this down for me? One thing I really want to learn about is attachment styles of kids. So I know enough to be dangerous about attachment styles. So like, depending on how, they usually talk about the mother, depending on how the mother is will influence the child's attachment style. So like, if you have a bipolar parent, sometimes they're nice, sometimes they're cruel or distant or whatever. Like, you get this sort of weird ambivalent attachment style where you're hot and cold as well. And it's just super damaging. So, but when mom is like always a source of comfort, right? Then you'll go explore, like, you're way more confident because you know, oh God, like, something happened. I fell, I scraped my knee, a friend was mean to me. Like, we go back to mom. Mom is always this comforting blanket, and you're actually more bold and your attachment style, I forget the name of it, but like, your attachment style is stable. It's not the word they use, but you know, whatever. So it's positive. So that is what a frenemy creates, that like disturbance pattern. Like, like, what do you do? How do you engage? And it creates psychic stress.
Interesting. Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to the Gary Vaynerchuk episode, because what you were saying just now reminded me of, at the end of the episode, he says, I want to build the biggest building in town, but not by tearing any other buildings down to do it. Like, I want everyone's building to be big. I just want to, because he's competitive, I happen to want to build the biggest, which I loved. So if you haven't seen that episode, go check it out. It's
let's go hard on that for a second. So I'm going to make some really aggressive statements here. the reason people want to tear other people's down is because they're mentally and emotionally weak. They are damaged human beings, and they're doing nothing to rectify that. Like, that is, and here's the problem. Why do people bully? Yes, they're insecure, but here's the truth nobody wants to acknowledge. It's powerful. And when you bully people, you actually feel better. And if you, that bully is, that bully is, when they're bullying, they're not crying inside.
Right.
It's the one time where they feel good about themselves because it's powerful. It is powerful. And so until you acknowledge that it really does give them a positive reward. So to go to a bully and say, hey, like, this is really a cry for help. No, it's not. Like, that's the one part of their life that's working. You have to replace it. You've got to give them other ways to shine that are constructive, that give them that feeling of power and empowerment and control, all things that we all want. Yeah. So this is somebody that probably has a relationship with those closest to them that makes them feel powerless. I won't say they're probably being abused, but they're just not getting that sense of power, control, pride anywhere else. And so they have found that, oh, well, I can prey on the weak, which they're not thinking of it like that. They just like feel dominant, and that feels awesome. And so they get into this super negative pattern. So teaching people that it's okay to want to have the biggest building. That's okay. Like, that's a human trait. Like, and not everybody cares about that. Sure. That's not driving everybody, but it is absolutely, like, I'm the same. I want to build the biggest business. Like, I want to build the biggest, greatest studio of all time. I want to be the greatest interviewer of all time. I want people to recognize me as the GOAT interviewer, like, and not with any degree of hesitation, right? I want that. Yeah. That seems awesome. I'm not going to crumble as a human being if I don't pull it off, but that's awesome. And that's exciting for me to strive towards. Like, I want to do that. And the fact that I see how becoming the greatest of all time in interviewing and building this community around being me, like, how that fuels the ethos of the media company. Like, I see that thread. I see that connection. So it's like, oh my God, the two things I really am enjoying, and I love acquiring the skill set and all of that, like, they self-reinforce. That's how I know we've got the timing right. So it's like, this is amazing. But make no mistake, I want to win over everyone. But I don't want to fuck anybody. Like, think about it right now. So I would say that from an influencer standpoint, Gary's ahead of me, right? Yeah. It just seems objectively true to me.
The numbers don't lie.
Right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Numbers don't lie. Market is spoken. But when he came on, did I try to fuck him up?
No.
Or did I try, like, with all of my heart to make him shine, to give him a platform to show us how to, right? Like, and I believe that's the winning strategy. Mm-hmm. Like, I want, not only do I not want to tear other people's buildings down, I want to help them build theirs. Yeah. I just still want to build a better one. You know what I mean? Like, and I love that. And I love that.
You can do both, but I think that's where people get tripped up, is they feel like they can't do both, right? And you can.
100%.
You can. Cool. I think we should probably wrap up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Then I'll put this down. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. These are so fun. I hope you guys are enjoying the incredible human beings that agree to come on the show as much as we are. I am honored by every guest that comes on and shares. It's the same way I feel about authors, that they are willing to take this stuff. Like, Dr. Andy Walshe has spent decades acquiring this knowledge, and he just shares it openly, which I think is absolutely incredible. So just want to express my gratitude to each and every one of them. And then each and every one of you, we just crossed 50,000 on Facebook, yeah, which is amazing. We don't take a single person for granted. Thank you guys all so much. And if you haven't already subscribed, please be sure to do so. And until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care.